going on, guys? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and Waterdeep Dragon Heist is out. Technically, I think it's supposed to come out tomorrow, but I went to my friendly local game store and they had it on the shelf and they let me buy it. So I may actually have it potentially a day early than I'm supposed to. So what is this? This is going to be my What's New in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. If you're familiar with Nerd Immersion, familiar with the channel, whenever a new book comes out, one of the first things I do is a What's New video, and I just very quickly go through what's new. I don't dive into the story, I don't delve into what's going on there, I just talk about what new things are included within. So for one, spoiler alert, there will be spoilers as I'll be going over. There is not a ton of new mechanical stuff, but there is some really cool new magic items and some new monsters, but more, I guess less monsters, more NPCs. And there are some stat blocks for legendary NPCs of the Forgotten Realms. I was very excited to see. So let's take a flip through, and I'll tell you what's new in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So the way the book is kind of orchestrated, I guess I can just give you this up front, is it is divided into 9 chapters. There's an intro kind of setting up the story for you, the DM running the game. And the chapters kind of go through the different aspects of what's, happening throughout the adventure. And then there's chapter 9 is Volo's Waterdeep and Kyridian, and that's sort of written in Volo's hand, if you will, from Volo's perspective, and talks about, the city and all that kind of stuff. And we have magic items and so on. So there's one of the really cool things is this really cool piece of art of the Yawning Portal, showing all these different characters with numbers, and then if you flip to the back of the book, you can figure out who each character is. I thought that was a really fun little thing to do. And let's just flip into the first couple pages, because there's something at one point, actually did notice looking through here. It's kind of strange with the changes they're making to the Adventurers League that when looking in here, there's stuff about gaining renown. And that is, if my understanding of new Adventure League stuff, is completely useless currency now, as they're kind of doing away with that. But, for instance, completing this one mission reward, each Harper gains 1 renown. Each Greyhand gains, I guess you can maybe get renown with the different factions. It'll help you boost your way up through, because there are several factions you can join along, enemies you can make, and so on. It's actually a very well written adventure. I like, just from the quick perusal that I've given it, that you can do so many different things, play this adventure theoretically multiple times of the year, go through multiple different aspects, and never play the same game twice. So there is here on page, I think this is 47, there's a section on a Temple of Gond. Again, spoiler alert, but I will go over some of the rewards as they are new items, kind of. So basically your character can choose one of these items as a reward. Adjustable stilts. The stilts take 1 minute to put on or remove. They increase the height of any humanoid wearing them by 2 to 5 feet. Each stilt weighs 8 pounds and is 1 foot long when fully collapsed. Backpack parachute. A humanoid wearing this piece of gear can deploy the parachute as a reaction while falling or as an action otherwise. The parachute requires at least a 10-foot cube of unoccupied space in which to deploy, and it doesn't open fast enough to slow a fall of less than 60 feet. It is, if it has sufficient time and space to deploy properly, the parachute allows its wearer to fall and land without taking any damage. Once it's been used, it takes 10 minutes to repack. Or a barking box. The metal cube, 6 inches on a side, has a crank on top. Using an action to wind the crank activates the box for 8 hours. While activated, the box barks whenever it detects vibrations within 15 feet of it. As long as the box and the source of the vibrations are in contact with the same ground or substance, a switch on the side of the bark box sets the device to emit either a small dog's bark or a large dog's bark. And then there's the matchless pipe. A switch made of flint is built into the bowl of this fine wooden smoking pipe. With a few flicks of the switch, the pipe lights itself. Other things that are new in here as I go through are rules for sort of handling your own tavern, and I don't think it's any secret that we know that basically through one way or another, it's anticipated the party gets a home base. Some place that they can go and you know, kind of operate out of, and it has things on how to deal with running that. It also has a lot of stuff in here that's sort of new, I will say, letting you see prices for different scrolls and potions and things in different areas of Waterdeep. So if you run a game in the Forgotten Realms and your party makes their way to Waterdeep, this book may be for you. I do have a complaint, though. It seems that it doesn't matter what book it is, that Wizards of the Coast can't get away without having printing errors. So let's see if I can find... Yeah, here we go. I don't know if you can see, if this will come into focus. See how it's kind of like, it's double printed right there? A Cold Reception, Ice Capades, a Waiting Coach. It's fuzzy because it looks like it's basically double printed. Let's see if I can get both of these here, right? So if you see the one page... I don't know if that comes across, but one is, you know, this one over here. Where is it? Here. How it's much thinner because it's not double printed. It might not translate well, but it basically looks like they printed it in red and they printed it again right over top of it. So all of the headings, and this happens throughout my copy of the book, are fuzzy and kind of... It looks almost like a 3D image, right? Where you have the two things layered on top and you needed glasses to make it work. So that's just a little thing, and it's annoying, and you shouldn't have to deal with that with a brand new book that just came out. There's a table here for a chase, rooftop chase, and the complications in that. We haven't really had much in the way of chase rules outside of the little bit contained in the Dungeon Master Guide, so getting additional chase rules is always nice. There's a cool thing over here. One of the treasures from a specific place you can get is a potion of healing mixed with a potion of flying. When imbibed, you roll on the potion mystic ability table in Chapter 7 of the Dungeon Master Guide. If you're unfamiliar, there's a table there in Chapter 7 of the DMG where it talks about what the different effects can be of mixing potions and like how bad stuff can happen. And that's like an optional rule you may never use, but they found a way to incorporate it if the party finds themselves in this one spot and chooses to imbibe that one potion. So I thought that was pretty neat. Let's see. Don't think there's too much more than that that's worth going over. And man, it's throughout the book, that double printing. There are, I will say, there's a lot of like well drawn out, nice kind of old school looking maps for things. There's several of those throughout this book, so that's very nice. I'm a visual guy, so I like to see maps like that. There are, you know, there's riddles and things. I don't know, I like what I see when I read through this book. So let's go ahead, and skip to sort of the end stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff about ship combat and different ship-related things. That's a piece there. I think there's even a piece about underwater, like a submarine, because there's an access to one sub you could potentially get. And again, like I said, I'm just kind of glancing over these things, and then we're going to get to the end where the meat of it all is. So, that is pretty much my quick flip through of things that I found that were unique. And again, I have not read this book cover to cover. I have only flipped through it. And partially that's because I don't know if I want to run this. I do want to run this. I know that I want to run this, but I also don't know if I want to try to play in it. So I don't want to spoil it for myself by reading everything. But we'll see. So, we've now moved on to magic items. There are a lot, and if you're fans of Forgotten Realms related stuff, I'm sure there's some here that you'll recognize. But first up is Azure Edge, a legendary battle axe. I will also say that a lot of them are legendary or artifacts, so I don't know how this would translate. Again, reminder, this campaign only goes from 1st to 5th, so if you find yourself in a scenario where you're able to acquire these items, it may break the game. I will say that most of these really powerful items are being wielded by very powerful characters, so chances of you getting them are unlikely, but that doesn't mean it will stop every party from trying to attempt it. So, Azure Edge, a solid steel handle etched with tiny runes, wrapped in blue dragon hide, star sapphire set into the pommel. It's forged from silver, a steel ally whose wedges constantly shimmer with a deep blue luminescence. It is a +3 battle axe, so +3 to attack and damage, and people casting the shield spell, it has no effect against this axe. It can cut through shield spells as though they were not there. When you hit a fiend or undead with this axe, cold blue flames erupt from its blade and deal an extra 2d6 radiant damage to the target. It has the hurling capability. Battle axe has 3 charges. You can expend 1 charge and make a ranged attack with the axe, hurling it as if you had the thrown property with a normal range of 60 feet and a long range of 180 feet. Whether it hits or misses, the axe flies back to you at the end of the current turn, landing in your open hand or at your feet in your space as you choose. The axe regains all expended charges daily at dawn. Kind of talked about the illumination a little bit. You can use an action to cause the axe to glow blue or to quench the glow. Sheds a 30-foot bright light, 30-foot dim light. And then it does have sentience. I'm not going to go too much into the personality, but it has a 12 intelligence, a 15 wisdom, and a 15 charisma, and it has hearing and dark vision out to 120 feet. Speaks telepathically. We have the Badge of the Watch. This is a rare item here. I should say Azure Edge requires attunement. The Badge of the Watch requires attunement by someone designated by the Open Lord of Waterdeep. Basically, while you have this, you gain a +2 bonus to your AC if you aren't using a shield. If it's more than 5 feet away from you for more than a minute, it vanishes and harmlessly reappears on a surface within 5 feet of the Open Lord. While holding the badge, they know your location, provided the two of you are on the same plane of existence, and your attunement with the badge hasn't ended. And as an action, the Open Lord can touch the badge and end your attunement to it. Next up, we have the Black Staff. Alright, we're talking the Black Staff. So, previously wielded by Kelvin Aronson, or Kelvin Blackstaff of Blackstaff Tower. Now, we have the stats for it. Obviously, a legendary item requires attunement by the Blackstaff heir, who must be a wizard. So not anybody's going to really be able to use this. It has the magical properties of a Staff of Power containing the DMG, and then, again, the following things on top of that. You can animate walking statues. You can spend one or more of the staff's charges as an action to animate or deactivate one of the walking statues of Waterdeep. You must be in the city to use the property, and you can animate or deactivate one statue for each charge expended. It doesn't actually say. I guess the charges are the charges for the wand, or sorry, the Staff of Power. The animated statue obeys the telepathic command of Kelvin Aronson's spirit, which is trapped inside the staff. Dispel Magic. You can expend one of the staff's charges as a bonus action to cast Dispel Magic on a creature, an object, or a magical effect you touch with the tip of the staff. If the target is an unwilling creature or an object in possession of such a creature, you must hit the creature with a melee attack using the Black Staff before you can expend the charge. Drain Magic. The property affects only creatures that use spell slots. When you hit such a creature with a melee attack using the Black Staff, you can expend one of the staff's charges as a bonus action, causing the target to expend one spell slot of the highest level it can cast without casting a spell. If the target has already expended all its spell slots, nothing happens. Spell slots that are expended in this fashion are regained when the target finishes a long rest as normal. Master of Enchantment. When you cast an enchantment spell of first level or higher while holding the staff, you can make an Arcana check, DC 10 plus spells level. If you succeed, you cast the spell without expending a spell slot. And then it is sentient with a 22 intelligence, 15 wisdom, 18 charisma, hearing and dark vision to 120 feet, and communicates telepathically. Bracer of Flying Daggers. As an action, you can pull up to 2 magical daggers from the bracer and immediately hurl them, making a ranged attack with each dagger. The dagger vanishes if you don't hurl it right away, and the daggers disappear right after they hit or miss. The bracer never runs out of daggers. The Dragon Staff of Ageron. There's a pronunciation guide at the front. Let's see how we pronounce it. Of Ageron. Ageron. Got it. Another legendary staff. While holding the Dragon Staff, you have advantage on saving throws against the spells and breath weapons of dragons, as well as the breath weapons of other creatures of the dragon type, such as dragon turtles. The creature of the dragon type that you touch with the staff can move through the city of Waterdeep, ignoring the dragon ward that's on the city. The effect lasts until the creature is touched again by the staff, excuse me, or until the time you proclaim when you confer this benefit. So it has 10 charges. While holding it, you can expend 1 charge as an action to cast a command spell. If you target a dragon with this casting, the dragon has disadvantage on the saving throw and regains 1d10 charges daily at dawn. Feather of Diatrima Summoning. It's a large plume. This is Jarlaxle's hat plume. You throw it on the ground, and a large, colorful, flightless bird native to the Underdark appears. Use an action to speak the command word, throw the feather. It appears for 6 hours and reverts to its feather form. It reverts to the feather form early if it drops to 0 hit points, or if you use an action to speak the word to turn the word back to a feather. When it turns back into feather form, it can't be used again for 7 days. It uses the statistics of an axe beak, but it uses piercing damage instead of slashing. It is friendly to you and your companions, and it can be used as a mount. It understands your languages and obeys your common commands. If you issue no commands, it defends itself, but takes no other actions. The Knaves of that requires attunement. The Bracers of Flying require attunement. The Dragon Staff and the Black Staff, all these are attunement thus far. This one also attunement, the rare Knaves Eye Patch. You have advantage on perception checks that rely on sight. It removes the sunlight sensitivity feature, and if you are immune to magic that allows creatures to read your thoughts or determine whether you are lying. Creatures can communicate telepathically with you only if you allow it. The Lord's Ensemble is very rare. It requires attunement by a creature with a humanoid build. It's basically 3 pieces that the Masked Lords of Waterdeep wear. The Lord's Helm. Bucket helm. While you wear it, your voice is magically altered to sound genderless, and you are immune to magic that allows other creatures to read your thoughts, to determine whether you are lying, to know your alignment, or to know your creature type. Creatures can communicate telepathically only if you allow them. The Lord's Amulet functions as an amulet of proof against detection and location, and the Lord's Robe functions as a ring of free action, and it creates the illusion that you have a nondescript androgynous humanoid build and stand 6 feet tall. Paper Bird. There's a really cool little art here of a paper bird. If you write a message of 50 words or fewer on this magic sheet of parchment and speak a creature's name, it folds itself up into a tiny paper bird and takes off. The recipient must be on the same plane of existence as you, otherwise the bird turns to ash as it takes flight. It's 1 hit point, AC 13, fly speed of 60, dexterity of 16, a dexterity of 16, and a score of 1 on all other abilities. Is immune to poison and psychic damage. It travels to within 5 feet of its intended recipient by the most direct route, whereupon it turns into a non-magical and inanimate sheet of parchment that can be unfolded only by the intended recipient. If the bird's hit points or speed is reduced to 0 or is otherwise immobilized, it turns to ash. Paper birds usually come in flat boxes containing 1d6 plus 3 sheets of parchment. Ring of Truth-Telling, uncommon. Oh, I should say that the birds do not require attunement. They are uncommon. The Ring of Truth-Telling, uncommon, requires attunement. While wearing this ring, you have advantage on insight checks to determine whether someone's lying to you. Smoke Powder, because guess what, folks? We now have guns, officially. The Drow Gunslinger we'll get to in a second. But Smoke Powder. It contains enough smoke powder. A packet contains enough for 5 shots. A keg holds enough for 500 shots. If the smoke powder is set on fire, dropped, or otherwise handled roughly, it explodes and deals fire damage to each creature or object within 20 feet of it. 1d6 for a packet, 96 for a keg. Successful DC 12, dexterity saving throw halves the damage. Casting Dispel magic on the smoke powder renders it permanently inert. And then the Stone of Golar, or Galar, I don't know how you pronounce it. I should probably look at the front and figure that out. Is an artifact. As such, you roll to determine what its minor beneficial and minor detrimental things are on those tables in the DMG. It has 3 charges and regains 1d3 charges daily at dawn. While holding the stone, you can expend a charge to cast the Legend Lore spell. By using the stone to cast Legend Lore, you communicate directly with the Aboleth, whose Galore is named after. That's what the stone is named after. And it shares its knowledge with you. The Aboleth can't lie to you, but the information it provides is often cryptic or vague. The Aboleth knows where Neverember's secret vault is located. Again, so we didn't talk about spoilers. Failed Memory. When you attune to the stone, which is obviously attunement, you must make a DC 16 Wisdom save. On a failed save, you lose all memory of the stone being in your possession and all knowledge imparted by it. A remove curse spell Cast on you has a 20% chance of restoring lost knowledge and memories, and a greater restoration spell does so automatically. And then it is also intelligent with an intelligence, sentient rather, with intelligence of 18, wisdom of 15, charisma of 18, and hearing and dark vision out to a range of 120 feet. And that is it for the new magic items. Then we have some new monsters and NPCs. I'm gonna kind of skip over like Joe Schmo NPCs to get to the good stuff, and then new monsters. We have a apprentice wizard. We have bard. Some of these were in I think either Mordenkainen's or Volo's, and they're just reprinted so you can have what you need all in one place. Barnabas Blastwind, the Black Viper, some Griffin Cavalry Rider stats, which is cool. Here we go, the Drow Gunslinger. This is a CR4. Has basically everything you'd expect for a Drow, but has the Gunslinger ability. Being within 5 feet of a hostile creature or attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on the Drow's range attack rolls with a pistol. In addition, it ignores half and 3/4 cover when attacking with the pistol. What you really care about is the pistol. It has a +6 to hit for these guys, range of 30-60. Hits one target, does 1d10 plus 4 piercing damage, plus 2d10 poison damage. Durnan's got stats in here with his badass sword. Hallam, who's a monk who focuses on Tyr. I don't really know what he's from, so I'm not too intrigued by him. But then we have Jarlaxle. I say Baenre. I think the pronunciation guide says Baenre. I say Baenre because I've listened to every Drizzt novel on Audible, and the guy who's the same narrator for all of them says Baenre, so that's what I use. He's a CR 15. He's got an AC of 24. Because it's Jarlaxle, here's his equipment. You ready? +3 leather armor, hat of disguise, bracers of flying daggers, cloak of invisibility, knave's eye patch, ring of truth telling, +3 rapier, portable hole, wand of web, and his hat is adorned with a diatrema feather. Evasion, drow. He has darkness, fairy fire, levitate, so he does have some drow noble abilities. Legendary resistance, and then they gave him this ability, Master Attuner. He can attune to up to 5 magic items and he can attune to items that would normally require attunement by a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. He has Suave Defense. When he's wearing light or no armor, he adds his Charisma mod to AC. He has a couple of attacks, and then a couple legendary actions. We have Laryl Silverhand, though. So she's a CR 17, and we have all of her spells from 1st to 9th level. But more importantly, she's a Mistran, so she has access to the Spellfire, ability, which is recharges after a long rest. Magical heatless silver fire erupts from her, and she gains one of the following benefits: breathe underwater, survive without food and water, immune to magic that would ascertain her thoughts, or resistance to cold damage, and unharmed by temperatures as low as 50 degrees. And then it also gives her these new options. Aside from the Flame Tongue longsword she wields, the ability she has to literally attack people with her hair. The Spellfire activates, she can cast Cure Wounds. Target regains 1d8 plus 5 hit points. And after she uses, she rolls a d6. If she rolls a 1, Spellfire goes down. Cast Revivify without material components. Same thing, except it's a 1 or a 2. Or release a 60-foot line or a 30-foot cone of silver fire. Objects in that area aren't being carried or worn. Take 4d12 fire damage. Each creature must make a DC 21 saving throw, or dex save, or risk taking 4d12 fire damage, half as much on a success. After she uses this, roll a d6. On a 1 to 3, the silver fire disappears. We have Manshun. He doesn't really have too much to go over other than he's got all of his spells, and he does wield a Staff of Power and Robes of the Archmagi. There's a lot of Robes of the Archmagi rolling around. Laryl Silverhand also has those. Mert the Moneylender. He doesn't have too much going on. Maloon War Dragon wields Azure Edge, the axe we talked about, so he's just worth mentioning that he's got that. And he is basically just a fighter. Nimblewright is pretty cool. Check this out. Nimblewright is right over here. he is here. He's basically like a Warforged. I don't know if you think if you ever watch Adventure Time. I want to say his name is Rattleballs. That's what it makes me think of. But basically a Warforged swashbuckler. And he's basically that's basically it. He's got some resistances, but he's pretty cool looking. Got Nazca Urgray, who's just basically a dwarf thug, but he has a crossbow for a hand. We have Romalia Haventree of the Harpers. And she has a figurine of Wondrous Power, Silver Raven. She has up to 7th level spells. And she has an Arcane Ward. She has an Arcane Ward, 30 hit points. So basically she's a Abjuration Wizard. And that gives her the ability to get those temporary hit points with her Arcane Ward. And then we have Vajra Safar, who is the new Blackstaff, who is obviously a 9th level spellcaster, and more importantly, she wields the Blackstaff. And I think that's pretty much it. Volo here, we have the Castellanters. They do have the ability to summon devils and become invisible, which is pretty cool. Volo doesn't have a whole hell of a lot. We do have the Walking Statues of Waterdeep, which I guess are technically a new monster. Challenge rating 18, 314 hit points, AC of 17, immune to cold, fire, poison, psychic, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magic weapons, from non-magical attacks not made with adamantine weapons, immune to charm, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, and stunned, and they have true sight. When it drops to 0 hit points, it's crumbled and destroyed. Any creature on the ground within 30 feet must make a DC 22 dex save or take 4d10 bludgeoning damage. Their forms can't be changed. They have advantage on saving throws versus spells. They deal double damage to objects and structures. They make 2 attacks, and their slam attacks are plus 16 to hit, 3d12 plus 10 damage, and hurled stones are plus 16 to hit, range of 200, 800, and deal 6d10 plus 10 bludgeoning damage. And that is it. Xanathar is here. He's a beholder, but he has 3 different rings: a ring of invisibility, a ring of mind shielding, and a ring of force resistance. We have the legal code for Waterdeep right here. We have some maps of basically the tavern that you would get. Here's, oh, man, the book is got adhesive to it, so it's stuck, so the pages are, I'm telling you, man, Wizards really needs to step up their publishing. And then here's what I was telling you about, where they have the names of everybody that's here. And then you have this big old map in the back here that's just this big map of the city of Waterdeep. And, like, I don't know if you guys can see, but, like, it gets down to, like, the names of the streets. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, guys, sorry that was a little long-winded, but it's a what's new, so I wanted to cover as much as I could. I love some of the items, and I am so pumped to have the stat blocks for so many of these legendary Sword Coast Forgotten Realms characters. I mean, everything they've released thus far, with the exception of the little bit of Eberron stuff, is all Forgotten Realms. So, like, this should have been book 1 that came out before Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Princess of the Apocalypse and all those, because Waterdeep and Neverwinter and all these other cities, they feature heavily in all of those books. You know how useful this would be when your party goes to Waterdeep? I'm currently running Princess of the Apocalypse and Rise of Tiamat at the same time in the same universe, and more often than not, the party finds themselves in the town of Waterdeep, the city of Waterdeep. This book would have been huge to have that information, to have the map with the street names and the number of shops and what you can get there. Especially because people like Laurel Silverhand and Romalia Haventree are characters that are featured in Rise of Tiamat. They're there, they're part of the Waterdevian Council. So it would be great to have that information. So if you're planning to run a game in the Forgotten Realms, but more specifically along the Sword Coast, I would say, and I don't often say this, because I usually tell you just do your own thing, I would say pick up this book. It's an adventure, yes, but you'll get all sorts of useful information for the city. And even if you're not necessarily running it in the Sword Coast or running a Forgotten Realms campaign, if you want to run a game that takes place in just a city in a homebrew world or another continent or another campaign setting, that's not something wonky like Planescape, right? And you want, you know, you're going to run something in Greyhawk or wherever else. This is a great template for you. You have the maps. There's nothing that says you can't take everything that's in this book and supplant it into a city in your own world, and then let wizards and the team behind it do all the work for you. I know I have a city that in my homebrew campaign that would be basically the equivalency of Waterdeep, and I'm going to rely heavily on the stuff contained in this book to do that. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this. It is currently available at friendly local game stores. It will be out in about 10 or 11 days for the general public's consumption. There will be a link in the description below to pre-order this on Amazon. If you click on my link and go get it from there, then the portion of that will come back to me to help improve the channel and help me continue to do things like buy all of the minis that you see back here and trick out the D&D room so I can get more content out to you guys. So if you pick it up and you're not going to go to a game store to do it, I would greatly appreciate if you went and got it through my link below. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Be on the lookout for some unboxings of minis. I have this one. This is the City of the Dead case incentive. I did an unboxing of a whole brick of minis. I did a Dungeon Crate unboxing recently, and there's going to be a ton more content coming with the Kobold Press Creature Codex. So now that I'm set up here in the new house, things are going to start coming out pretty consistently. So I hope to see you all there. And I'll see you next time.